Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Went through all of my jewelry this morning and couldn't find any good chains to wear for the show.
Luke Inman, Superior Sports Talk. I just want to note the Vikings are now 2-0 straight up when I picked them in the gambling segment. Coincidence? I think not.
Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network. I'm just glad the Vikings give me fodder for constant internet fights. It feeds me and my power grows.
I'm Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings, here to tell Luke Inman he is now contractually obligated to bet on the Vikings every week.
And I'd like to remind Luke Inman as well that he still lost because he had Vikings minus 3.5. It's the Minnesota football party on a Victory Monday.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
Welcome in. The Vikings are 7-1. We're talking about it for the next hour on the Minnesota Football Party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find me on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom. The Lukes, Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman of Superior Sports Talk, Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and the Locked On Vikings postcast as we react to every game. He's at Luke Braun NFL. And Arif Hasan back with us at Arif Hasan NFL of Pro Football Network. The Vikings are 7-1. We're talking about Kirk Chains, how a rogue ref almost cost the Vikings a victory, TJ Hawkinson's impact, and the value of Vikings culture. We're talking about all of that today on the Minnesota Football Party. And before we get into this packed show, a reminder to download Amazon Fire and Roku on your television. Get us on the big screen for a seamless viewership experience. We're also free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Pick your platform, fire us up. Ron Johnson, Superior Sports Talk, Minnesota Football Party, all of the postcasts reacting to each and every game. Guys, I don't know how they do it every single week, but the Vikings are 7-1. They've won 6 games in a row. There's a momentum with this team, gentlemen, that is very intangible. It's, whether it was the Nickelodeon slime, or the Kirk chains, or the post-game game balls that KOC gives out. All the mojo, all of the intangibles are in this team's favor. It's the calls that happen in the fourth quarter. It's the breaks that they get, the fumbles they recover, the flags that don't get thrown on Minnesota but get thrown on the opponents. All of it is good for Minnesota. And I want you to try to sum it up and we'll start with the Reef. How do you put into words how this team keeps winning despite statistical indicators that this is not sustainable?
There's 2 different answers here, right? One answer explains why, and the other answer goes into kind of some detail about how it's happening. The explains why is that they're playing a bunch of mediocre teams, right? They just played a Taylor Heineke-led Washington Commanders team. And Taylor Heineke, better quarterback than Carson Wentz. To me, that is not a particularly fantastic bar to clear. But they played a lot of backup quarterbacks. They played like Andy Dalton in London, right? Like they played Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson in Miami. I think until we see them play a good team, we won't really know how resilient this team truly is in extraordinary circumstances. But, I think that there is something to be said about being undefeated against mediocre teams. I know that sounds like, damning with faint praise, but good teams do beat bad teams consistently and often. And you're kind of in that territory now, right? And so I think that there's something to be said about the way that the team performs late in games, the way that they don't, kind of shut down, the way that they don't let their play calling dictate kind of, negative expected points play, right? They don't go into soft shells when they have a lead. I guess they just do that all the time, I suppose, if you're one of the big critics of Ed Donatel.
It's my secret, Captain.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And they don't stick to just running the ball when they have the lead. They want to kind of put their their foot on the gas pedal, right? They want to step on the throats of their opponents. And I think that kind of attitude it kind of transmits into kind of these late game scenarios where they are behind and they know that they can just play the type of football that they play and come out with wins, which I think is a distinct difference, from last year. I think that, people like me tend to discount stuff like culture, right? But it very clearly, the culture of the Vikings is playing a really big role in how well they're playing and what the record is.
Braun, let me hit you with this. It seems like the guys that they brought in are the culture shapers on this team. The Harrison Phillips, the Jordan Hicks, the Za'Darius Smiths, and re-signing Patrick Peterson too, maybe sneaky important for this very reason, shaping the culture. Everybody they injected into this roster this year, regardless of how they're performing, and in most cases it's well, seems to be aiding in this sort of intangible process.
I mean, yeah, they're having fun. I think that's more a product of winning than winning is a product of being the team that has fun. Lose 3 in a row and we'll see who's dancing on the plane. But they aren't losing 3 in a row. And to me, the biggest thing is O'Connell's situational masters deal. We think about those margins, those like things on the edges that are, third downs and red zone. A lot of times, especially statistically, we'll think of it as like random. And they've had good red zone luck. Like I've seen that phrase, good third down luck. But they have been genuinely good in the red zone. Like their red zone concepts are good. They've been earned. They're not just like getting lucky instead of forcing, picks in the red zone or like man coverage breakers and stuff. That is earned. And so like on Locked On Vikings and on my stuff, I've been going over a lot of these and be like, okay, was this lucky or was it earned? And I'm finding a lot more earned than I guess I thought in situations where we usually kind of say, that's random and they've just been lucky. That'll regress. But this situational masters thing has been such an emphasis. It's getting more difficult for me to say, well, they just aren't going to be good in a fourth down or in a fourth quarter situation like they were in this one. That was good clock management at the end to be in a no score situation. That was a bold move and it was absolutely the right choice. It's really hard for me to be like, yeah, but next time they're going to screw that up. I don't think I can say that. And I think that to me has been the biggest thing that has sort of put them over the edge in all these games that are like closer than they should be if we're going to treat them like a 7-1 team.
You trust this head coach for sure in those end of half, end of game situations. Luke Inman, your take on this improbable 6-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, the way they're winning, it doesn't feel sustainable come playoffs. But in the meantime, I think as they continue to just improve on both sides of the ball, I think it's just amazing, as both of you already mentioned, what KOC has done in this huge turnaround with the situational play, 2-3 minutes of the final halves and at the end of the game. That was clearly, as we all knew under Zimmer those last 2 years, their biggest priority when he got here. And it's worked. I mean, they've cleaned up a lot of things in that department. It's also really encouraging to see the way the defense specifically has improved slowly but surely every week in this new system. Feels like they're starting to hit a new gear here as we kind of enter the second half of the season. The hope is that continues obviously throughout the second half of the season, and they just keep tightening things up. Currently the worst defense down in the red zone in the league, for example. So there's some things definitely to improve on. All the little things, though, that you want to win these close games, like Sam, you just mentioned on the Superior Sports Show, penalties, one of the best teams in the entire league. Player availability, one of the best teams from an injury standpoint. Call it luck, call it the new training staff, call it whatever you want, but all these things are why they're winning these close games. And again, the hope is by the time you do get into the playoffs and face some really tough teams, your offense and defense has just improved enough to where you're finally playing complete team football here for all 4 quarters on all 3 phases. Something, even though despite all the wins, we just still haven't seen yet.
Couple notes on Kirk here. This is what I've been thinking about all morning. Kirk was right. Kirk has said this time and time again when people ask him about his lot in life as a 500 quarterback, more or less. And Kirk Cousins says, it's about winning. When you're 500, you might not have a job very long. And now Kirk has had a job very long as a 500 quarterback. But he's always said this. He's always said, winning cures everything. So if I win, people are happy. That's how I create longevity in this league. That's how I, make people believers in me and this team. And now that Kirk is 7-1, despite statistics that are inferior to his career averages, people love Kirk Cousins. Like, in this fan base as a whole, how many other fan bases like their quarterback more than the Vikings fans do right now? Like, can you name 5 off the top? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, knock those off the list. There's not that many others right now. I mean, people love Burrow.
Oh, Seahawks, Geno Smith,
Jalen
come on,
Hurts.
they're going wild for him.
Yeah,
Joe
Geno.
Burrow,
Yeah,
Jalen
Hurts. But then you get into the Lamars, the Justin Herberts, and then you're right, Sam. It starts to get a little murky right there. Yeah.
I mean, there's 2 and on.
Yeah.
I feel like 2 and on has to count.
Yeah, that one's like the reason I wouldn't pick Lamar. I might pick Tua just because of the recent results, but the reason I wouldn't pick Lamar is because there is still kind of a polarizing split in the fan base, which is what led to the 2 and on thing in the first place, right? But no, I think that they do love Tua. I think that even though Joe Burrow struggled early in the season, Bengals fans like Joe Burrow more than Vikings fans like Kirk Cousins. I think there's 5. I think we can get to 5, maybe 7. But
hey, even
certainly
though he
the Vikings
lost,
fan base has
Taylor
embraced
Heineke
Cousins in a way that they haven't before.
Heineke's got a cult following.
Yeah.
Even though he lost 2-1, baby. Hey, playing a lot better. I mean, Washington fans have a lot more to cheer for now since he's been in. So we got to throw him in the mix.
Heineke did not deserve to win that football game. From a quarterbacking perspective, that was not a well quarterbacked. And his worst throw of the day went for a 50-yard touchdown, which we can get into. Yeah. But before the Kirk conversation gets away, Arif, I just want you to confirm for me that this is how you feel, because it's how I feel. If you don't, you can disagree with me. But we've said for years, Kirk has good stats, but there's an asterisk next to them. Kirk does not play as well as his stats would reflect, and that's why the Vikings fall short. This year, the stats are worse, but I would argue that he is the linchpin behind this success and this winning streak. So again, there's a disconnect between the stats and the play of the quarterback. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, and there always has been, right? It's very weird, right? That Cousins exists in this like space where when he puts up good stats, the team doesn't win as much as they need to. When the team wins, he's not putting up good stats. But I think that this converges, right? I think that the reason that there was a difference between what Cousins did before and what he is, in terms of winning, was related to inherent traits with the way that he plays football. He's not very improvisational. He doesn't tend to, he doesn't tend to change the way that he plays based off of the situation. And that has been different this year. He's been more aggressive when the team needs him to be more aggressive, which is not something we've seen in the past. He's been a little bit more improvisational. We saw that with some of his scrambling. We saw that with, the way that he's made some plays from the pocket, even when he's not scrambling. But his down-to-down play this year has been pretty poor, I think, just in terms of standard dropbacks and first, second down. And that has dragged down his stats, but it's also led to points in the game where, the Vikings are behind, 1 or 2 scores when they absolutely don't need to be based off of the way that everybody else on the field is playing. It's just that those other things kind of helped make up for it, as well as a lot of luck, things like defensive turnovers, special teams turnovers, and so forth. So I think that this converges, right? Unless Kirk Cousins improves in his standard play in the way that he had been playing before, we're not going to see the Vikings beat good teams. And there's some good teams coming up on the schedule where, the last time they played a good team, I think, was actually the Eagles, and they got blown out, right? There's some good teams coming up on the schedule, and they're going to need to play pretty well. I don't expect him to put up 10 yards in an attempt against the Bills or anything like that, but certainly he should do better than he has been playing, from drive to drive.
Inman, so if Kirk puts up a clunker against the Bills, just like he did against the Eagles, does the conversation flip right back to where it was before? That Kirk can't win on the big stage, Kirk can't beat the good teams, the other shoe is going to drop here on the Vikings. How big is this Bills game just for the trajectory of Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, good question. I think.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
We've short-circuited Luke.
All right, Luke Inman is off the grid. We'll try to get Luke back online. Can I pass he was winding up for a great answer. Let's pass it on to Luke Braun. You can answer in the way that Luke Inman would have, maybe, on the perception of Kirk Cousins after this Buffalo game.
I don't think I can do it justice. I don't want to step on his toes like that. No, I do not have a hat nearby to put on backwards.
Tinfoil ball.
But look, Cousins' whole thing is that he's worse than everybody. He's like worse than you would think against good teams, and he's better than you would think against bad teams. Like everybody's a little better against bad teams, but like the difference for Kirk has always been more extreme. And so if you look at this season, like, well, they played a bunch of bad teams and Kirk played really well against them, it kind of tracks. There's a couple things here. Yeah, they got a couple good teams coming down the pipe here. Buffalo, Dallas. That's a tough little stretch. We'll see if he can excel against those teams as well. But even if he can't, how many good teams are there? There's like 3 of them, and we already played one. We're gonna get a couple of them out of the way here, and then the rest is bad team. They might even get to the wild card round and play a bad team. So I don't know, man. Might not matter.
Yeah, the one team in the conference that scares you is the team that's above you, and that's the team that you're trying to catch for that number 1 seed, and probably will have a hard time doing so. And oddly, the Vikings could play a 7 seed quarterbacked by Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Matt Stafford. Like, that's just the way the NFC looks right now.
Pitiful quarterbacks.
And be favored heavily.
Yeah. Yes.
The home teams, could have the lesser quarterbacks in theory in those matchups. Before we get into, I think, an argument that's interesting, which side of the ball is improving the most right now for the Vikings and which still has the most room to grow, I want to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number 1 source for betting football and the NBA this season. We just had the World Series, so no more baseball, but hockey starting up. We got hoops. We got college basketball starting up, college football. It is still a packed sports season of the year, and make sure you get all your lines for all the games at betonline.net. Luke and I talked about the Vikings-Bills line on the postcast yesterday, currently sitting on betonline.net at 7.5, favoring Buffalo, over under 48. Luke thought it would be about 10.5 initially yesterday. I thought it would be 6, and it lands right in the middle.
Talk me down to 8.5.
I did, because the Packers were like 11. But that's where it sits right now. We'll watch that all week, see if it sneaks down to around 7. Check out that line and more at betonline.net, where the game starts. Offense or defense? Both groups have had a lot of room to improve as this season has gone on. To my eye, Arif, it feels like the defense is actually catching on more quickly. Would you agree, and why?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can just take a look at kind of how the defense has played, over the course of the game. Again, the defense has been doing really spectacularly in fourth quarters outside of everything. But they had a pretty tough time a couple of weeks ago against some teams that they should have been a lot better against. I mean, they allowed 22 points to the Chicago Bears, 29 first downs, and 25 points to the New Orleans Saints, led by Andy Dalton. And those are not really acceptable results for a defense that's hoping to compete in the playoffs. But 17 points against the Washington Commanders, 26 points against the Cardinals, which is a better offense, I think, than either that Saints or Bears offense. And I think you've got kind of the makings of a better defense, one that's playing a little bit more sound, one that's doing a little bit better on third down. And in particular, we've seen, I think, improvement in the pass rush range, right? I mean, Danielle Hunter's past 3 games have been significantly better than the first 5 games of the season from a pressure production perspective. But also just in terms of the way that he looks on film, it looks like he's, more comfortable. And, pairing that with za'darius Smith, seeing how well he's been playing over the past couple of games, seeing what Dalvin Tomlinson can do when he's been healthy, like that has been some pretty remarkable stuff. But then you've also got like some back end stuff, right? Like Cameron Dancer, I think, is playing pretty well and a lot more consistently. Like I think that the thing with him was that early in the season, he had some of these great highlight plays, and then he'd have these enormous, mistakes, right? That would expose the defense to giving up big points. And now we're not seeing those mistakes, right? That's pretty nice to see. So I think the defense has improved a lot more. I think if we were going to ask like which side of the ball has a higher ceiling to kind of unlock, it would be the offense. Mm-hmm. But I think the offense has played kind of how it's played for most of the season. It's gotten maybe a little bit better, but it still seems out of sync, still seems out of sorts. It still seems like there's a lot more for the offense to do. The defense, I think, is improving with a pretty remarkable trajectory.
Luke, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how much ceiling there is for the offense left, because what is plaguing them right now is different than what was plaguing them earlier in the season, where there would be miscommunications, there would be protection busts, guys would step the wrong way, guys would do the wrong thing against leverage. And we're still seeing a couple of instances of that. And if you clean those up, you could expect more production, but it's a lot less. And it's a fairly normal amount. Like that kind of thing will just happen, a time or two every game for everybody. But in this game, the struggles on offense, and they did figure it out eventually in the fourth quarter, but the struggles that plagued them for most of the game was KJ Osborne just getting beat by Kendall Fuller, Ezra Cleveland just getting beat by Jonathan Allen. It was like a talent issue rather than togetherness. They're not playing together. They're not, communicating right. They're new to things. They're making mistakes. It's been less of that. On the defense, it's been less of that, and we've seen the result. On the offense, it's been less of that, and we haven't seen the result. And I think that there is a more clear talent issue. I was a lot more worried about this before TJ Hawkinson. I really wanted them to get some kind of dynamic weapon that could be somebody that could draw things away from Justin Jefferson, because as good as Adam Thielen has played, teams have kind of gotten pretty good at figuring out exactly how much physicality they can get away with without getting called all day for it. And KJ Osborne has been kind of disappointing to me in this season so far as a wide receiver 3, as we kind of saw, like when he was covered by a corner and it wasn't like a zone thing, when he was covered by Kendall Fuller, couldn't get away, couldn't win on the catch point. That's just like getting beat. So I don't know how much more meat is on the bone for the offense. The defense has outplayed the offense in the last few games for sure. And I don't know how much there is left for the offense unless certain guys start playing better, or this might just kind of be what it is. And we just have to hope that they can make it, be enough, or that they can figure out some defenses moving forward.
I am intrigued to see how much TJ Hawkinson increases that ceiling, though, because when you look at what Hawkinson offers you compared to what you were getting out of production from the tight end position, it was abysmal. And Kirk Cousins has typically been on the higher end of getting the most out of his tight ends, whether it was Rudolph or the aggregate of Rudolph Irv or Tyler Conklin even last year. Kirk has been reliant on tight ends, particularly in the red zone. That's been a big thing for him. And I think that was a void in this offense in the first 7 games of the season. Hawkinson does add that dimension between the hash marks. I think that was lacking. For whatever reason with Irv Smith and obviously with Johnny Munt, there was something deficient about that position for the first 7 weeks, and maybe Hawkinson enhances something. That being said, you're not getting a lot out of Osborne right now. You're not getting a lot out of Thielen, although he did have one big splash play yesterday, 62 yards, but he's also not at 100%. So the offense is lacking a little of that depth I think you hoped that it would have. You thought you were maybe going to have 3 or 4 wide receivers that you used consistently this year, and they're still not really varying beyond heavy dose of Jefferson and a sprinkling with everybody else. Does the lack of offensive depth, or I guess their willingness to go deeper into that bench, is that a concern for you guys, or does the Jefferson heavy formula kind of satiate everything? Arif?
No, that is a concern. And that's actually one reason why I disagree with Luke on this, that I think that there is a lot more for the offense to grab onto in order to kind of expand what they can do and achieve a higher ceiling. I think it's because the offense is just not very diverse in the ways that it approaches the passing game, right? If you target Thielen a little bit more, if you target KJ Osborne a little bit more, you're not going to have as many difficult throws to Justin Jefferson. I think the kind of the per throw production of Justin Jefferson would go up and the total production would go down. And I think that would be a good thing, because when you can distribute the ball a little bit more effectively and take advantage of the space that Jefferson gives you, you've got a lot more passing yards available to you. I mean, there's a reason that this is like one of the worst years that Kirk Cousins has had in yards per attempt, even though Justin Jefferson's having an amazing season, right? I would like the offense to be more efficient. I would like it to be able to generate more first downs. And I think that the way to do that is to have a higher success rate on some of these passes. And that means finding the open guy. That means moving off that first progression into the second progression when it's appropriate, and declining sometimes that explosive play in order to get that first down, which is going to increase your success rate, your yards per attempt, your expected points, whatever you want to use as your metric for a successful passing game. That's going to help with that, right? And I think that, when we see that Thielen is wide open, Luke wrote a whole whole thing about how Thielen's actually open, and that's great. And now he's saying that there's no meat left on the bone for the offense. I feel like he's got to read his own writing, man. Come on. But I think that there's, I think, well, maybe he didn't write it. I don't know.
Man. I don't know.
Maybe he didn't write it. I don't know.
Maybe it's
he
getting
didn't
late.
write it. It's possible. But
His ghostwriter.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of operation they have at zone coverage, Tom Schreier. Come on, Tom.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll see. But, I think that can expand the range of what the passing offense could do, put more points on the board, hold on to the ball a lot more. Like, the Vikings have so many friggin' 3-and-outs. It wasn't just 2 weeks ago. It was this last week, right, against the Commanders. It was 4 weeks ago, right? Like, it just keeps happening, right? Stop punting the ball, right? Ryan Wright is fun, but, the best punter is the one you never use. And I think that, if we can just generate, more consistent first downs, this offense could, take off in a big way and help the defense, right? Because you hold on to the ball, they can't score. You decrease the number of drives that are available in a game and make your own drives more productive. That scoring margin increases. So absolutely, finding ways to use an open Adam Thielen and open KJ Osborne, being able to take advantage of what TJ Hawkinson has to offer. I think that there's a lot there that offense could do.
So one of the central points that I made in that big Thielen piece was
You always
about
go to
the
your first
physicality.
read, even though, I get it. Whatever.
What? That's not what I was going to say at all.
Yeah, I don't care.
Oh. God, I feel like I'm on Twitch. Like, one of the central points was about physicality and like holding, and how a lot of the production that we saw from Adam Thielen was that he was like drawing penalties. Has he? I don't think he drew a penalty against in either of the last two games. Correct me if I'm wrong. But to me, it felt like, all right, Detroit did a really bad job of being physical with Adam Thielen, but avoiding getting called. And the Saints also didn't do a very good job. And like, as the season has worn on, people have kind of done a better job of like finding that line. That might be a solution to Adam Thielen. I am genuinely concerned about that. I agree with Arif. Like, if you can get other weapons involved, and that might be TJ Hawkinson or it might be Thielen, that would be great. And it would obviously diversify things. You can't pay as much attention to Justin Jefferson. That's all great. I think the run game can also be a similar answer to that question. But in the last couple games, we haven't seen that. And I'm a little concerned that is this going to keep going the way that it went in the first few games? Are we going to get more separation, especially from Osborne? Seems like we're going to get it from Hawkinson, and that's really awesome. And can Thielen find ways to get through that physicality, and either start forcing those holding penalties again, start drawing those flags again, or just get that separation? Maybe I'm overreacting to the last couple of games, but that's kind of maybe like what it comes down to.
Well, and the contested catch rate, unless he's legitimately declined, if he's the same player, the contested catch rate would, in theory, get better. He's been pretty poor at contested catches this year. Typically, he's over 50%. This year, he's, I think, below 30. So
he's below
that
30.
could improve as well, as he's blanketed a little bit more. Before we get into nerdy stats of the day, thanks for listening to the Minnesota Football Party as your first listen today. But for the second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Nerdy Stat of the Day has the best animation on this program. Let's run it.
Analytics fans rejoice.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
It's time to get educated
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
with the nerdy stat of the day.
We missed you,
You're a
Arif,
gift.
for the last Nerdy Stat segment, so we'll start with you. Nerd it up.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been kind of messing around with wide receiver metrics. I was able to get kind of the expected points per play from wide receivers, but I didn't like that very much because you're dividing a positive or a talent score, expected points, from a positive or a talent score, which is targets or catches. I think that receivers who are good get a lot of targets, receivers who are good get a lot of catches, and so dividing one by the other doesn't do a lot. So I combined that with yards per route run, or rather routes run, to give us a better opportunity opportunity score, right? And I figured out kind of the total expected points per route run, which I think is a little bit better than yards per route run, because it'll account for things like first downs and touchdowns. So I looked at the top receivers by yards per route run, and the top two were Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, followed by, of all people, Olamide Zaccheaus for the Atlanta Falcons. Then it's Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Matt Collins, Mecole Hardman, Jacoby Myers, and then Justin Jefferson. I was like, this is weird, right? And then I figured, hey, maybe this has something to do with the quality of quarterback play. So I created an expected points per route run based off of the level of quarterback play that we were getting, how many expected points per passing play that they were getting from their team's quarterbacks. And then I subtracted one from the other to get, expected points over expected per route run. I'm sure that there is a better name for this. And from there, I was able to generate a total expected points over expected based off of the number of routes they ran. And this list makes a lot more sense to me. So number 1, Tyreek Hill. Number 2, Jalen Waddle. That's a pretty incredible duo they have right now. Number 3, Stephon Diggs. And number 4, Justin Jefferson. What's really great about this is that it matches ESPN's new wide receiver metric, right? They use all their tracking data to figure out, how effectively a receiver gets open based on context, how effectively a receiver catches the ball based on how difficult that catch is supposed to be based on context, and how many yards after the catch they get based, again, on that context from the tracking data that they receive. And Justin Jefferson is 4th in 2022. I think first between 2019 and 2022. Stephon Diggs is up there. Tyreek Hill is up there. So it's been fun to kind of figure out kind of how nerdy these stats can get. But man, I'm really curious about Olamide Zaccheaus. Right? He's like 6th in this. It's incredible stuff.
I'm going to assume that you went to all this work to invent stats just for this segment. Don't tell me if you didn't. I don't want to know. I'm just going to assume you did all the work for that segment.
I would never reveal that kind of information and distract from how wonderful your day would otherwise be going.
Thank you. Luke Braun.
Well, mine's not nearly as nerdy as that, but I saw
Get wrecked.
Some interesting stuff right before the game. People in Commanders media saying that Benjamin St. Juste was going to shout out Justin Jefferson. And I was like, that can't be right. That can't be the idea.
What, you don't like the Canadian Gopher? Come on, man.
I like him fine, but not that much. Goodness gracious. And then the first drive, he gets like 4 catches on him and a touchdown. It's like, well, yeah, what do you think was going to happen? Held up okay the rest of the day, but the entire body of work in total, this is according to PFF's charting, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 73 of his 115 yards, and a touchdown, and then the pick at the end of the half. I wonder, how does an average corner perform against Justin Jefferson in a shadow situation? I'm going to guess St. Juste did better than whatever that line is. But even when shadowing, they still found Jefferson, at least in terms of targets, on 4 other players. They got him on Kendall Fuller once. They got him on Danny Johnson, the slot corner once. They got him on a safety, got him on a linebacker. Even in a world where Washington was committed to shadowing. I think it's an interesting little subplot of every game is what is the defense doing to try to stymie Jefferson, and how well are the Vikings denying the defense the opportunity to do that?
St. Juste is such an interesting factor in that decision. Okudah, I get that. Darius Slay, totally understand.
Yeah.
Benjamin St. Juste?
Oh, okay. Believe in your guys, I guess.
Yeah. Got him for a reason.
I hope you're right about this, Luke, because just thinking back anecdotally, I feel like whenever teams try to man up Jefferson, typically goes badly. Whereas if you look at a really ratty cornerback group, sometimes those teams actually have the most success because they offer the most help. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because they don't try to get away with it.
Like Jair Alexander got toasted in week 1. They tried too hard to make that work. Here's my nerdy stat of the day. First downs yesterday. Really bad for the Vikings. They had 26 first down opportunities. They generated 68 yards. So that in itself is bad. That's 2.6 yards per first down. Then you break it down and realize that included in that number was a 16-yard gain, an 18-yard gain, and a 23-yard gain. So they had 3 out of 26 that had great results. The other 23 first downs produced 0.7 yards per play. 0.7 yards.
Well, and I'm
per
an
play.
a-hole for complaining about the offense? Come on, man. I'm not angry at you.
You were
Sam.
complaining
I'm
about me
angry at
complaining about the
side of them.
offense.
Yeah, you said that there was not much left for the offense to do. Look, there were 23 first downs they could have done better.
Okay, get better, Ezra Cleveland.
Right, yeah. So I'm not mad at either of the co-hosts here. I mean, I'm always perpetually mad at Luke, but specifically not for this stat. I'm just mad at Twitter for getting mad at me for talking about how bad that offense was.
It was bad.
Pathetic.
It was really bad. It was everything that was good
the
about.
Commanders' defense is like better than people expect, and Ron Rivera's done a pretty decent job turning around past 4 or 5 games. Like I want to give him that credit, but that's pathetic. You got to do better than that against the Commanders. I don't
Jonathan
care.
Allen held the Vikings hostage. You can't let that happen.
Yeah, well, Jonathan Allen held them down, and Deron Payne punched them. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Deron Payne inflicted pain. Yeah, in a serious way. So this play doesn't have as much meaning because the Vikings won, but can we talk about the ref gate? The back
break
judge.
it up, break
Oh,
it up,
Luke's
break
back.
it up, you two. Break it up.
Hey.
Hey.
Luke, if you had a nerdy stat prepared, we're not done yet. If you have a nerdy stat for
nerdy
us.
stat prepared. Of course I don't. Hey, you want to win 6 close games in a row? I'll tell you what, you need good special teams play. And let's just ignore the Greg Joseph, missed field goals, missed extra points for a second. In nearly every other phase, they are playing really solid. Starting field position, number 1 in the league with average drive starting at the 32-yard line. Didn't know that. Opposing teams are starting at the 25-yard line. That's good for second best in the NFL. And what's exciting, we really haven't seen anything from Kene Nwangu or Jalen Reagor yet, too. So that's encouraging. Ryan Wright, he's been a pleasant surprise. He's tied for second in the league with 19 punts inside the 20. He's 8th in the league in net punting average, so a top 10 punter there. Had that boomer in Miami, 73-yard punt. Can't really ask much more than that from the rookie. Even Joseph from 50 and in, he's been perfect. So a lot of different elements to special teams. But all in all, I think just in general, this unit has been a bright spot for this team under Matt Daniels. Helped them win a lot of these close games. You hear the coaches call out guys like Brian Asamoah, Troy Dye, Caleb Evans for being really good, excelling on those kick and punt coverage duties. So really good to see all the way around from the special teams unit.
The votes are in, and the nerdiest stat of the day by far went to Arif. Tell Luke
No way.
the name of the stat that you invented just for this segment. What was the name of the stat?
First of all, we have to come up with a better name, but it is expected points over expected per route run.
Expected points
Dude,
over
okay, loser punishment. You get that
expected points.
tattooed. You get that tattooed loser punishment. Okay? On your right cheek, right there.
O Poper. What's the acronym? OP.
I don't know. I was just describing what the stat is, and then you decided that was the name. I explicitly said it needs a better name.
Okay. Well,
No,
I
say you.
appreciate
I
that.
say you lean into it and you roll with it. I say you lean into the acronym.
Looks like a character
Let's
on
talk.
House of Dragon.
I still have to watch that. Luke, we were just going to pivot to the ref play. Can we just talk about the insanity of that moment with a triple team and a ref barreling into Cam Bynum? Inman, give me your best take. Like, if the Vikings lose, that's all we're talking about today. So we may as well talk about it even in victory.
Yeah, so that happened very early in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. I actually at halftime tried to take the dog for a quick walk. I came back in and I see Washington just scored on a long touchdown. I'm like, well, that's annoying. Okay. And then I catch the replay and catch up what everybody's obviously talking about. I jump on Twitter and I almost lost it. I couldn't believe it. Of course, right away you're frustrated. And then the more and more you think about it, it's like, all right, well, just one of those dumb luck things. Poor me. Why the Vikings? Why us? Outdoor, on the road, on grass. Why? Why every time? But it's always something. But yeah, extremely bad luck. I don't know what else to call it, Sam. I mean, what are you going to do? I think Cam Bynum even said later, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was super frustrated right away. Then the ref came over and apologized, and then just, all right, put it in the bag and move on. Is what it is.
The photo of that play from Star Tribune is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's like there's no way, based on the photo, that Curtis Samuel catches that ball. And somehow it happened. I can't think of a play.
Why was that ball thrown? 3 guys sitting back there.
Jonathan Bullard in his lap. Couldn't step in the way he wanted.
There you go.
Tonga had another good pressure yesterday, by the way. Just wanted to point that out.
What, he played 21 snaps
there, like.
I did not comment on the decision to throw it. Only the mechanics.
Heineke, not impressive to me at all in the game. And he makes a couple plays where he rescues a drive with his legs. But, I mean, Case Keenum, for instance, would be more reliable than Heineke in a long-term situation.
I think he played exactly what we remember of him, right? I mean, he had a lot of hype and buzz when he got snuck into that playoff game. He took Tom Brady down the wire, I think, in the wild card round. But he's like exactly what I remember from his time here in Minnesota. And yeah, you're right. I mean, apparently an upgrade over Carson Wentz as of now. Won a couple games. That's fun. But long term, yeah, obviously you don't see too much there to build on. I don't think anybody's calling him the quarterback of the future there in Washington.
No. And the interception he threw late, pretty damaging. And what do we grade the bowling pin celebration? Scale of 1 to 10. Like, give it a decimal point. Give it a quality professional score. Luke Braun.
So the bowling thing has been done. It's a classic. It's happened before. That's not a knock necessarily on it. It's okay to do something that other people have done before. Your own execution is your own, right? They'll put it like a 6. It's a solid, proven thing. However, then Jordan Hicks wobbles and goes down as the last pin, ups it 2 points,
Yes.
That's
2 or 3 points immediately. I'm giving it a 9. That was very important. I'm giving it a 9. I loved it.
Yeah, I would go 9-2. The only thing that maybe they could have done better is that when he was wobbling, a few guys got a little antsy and got up. If they all would have stayed down until he fell, that would have almost got a perfect score for me. I thought that was outstanding. Yeah, 9-2, I'll give it. That was fun.
Generous.
Yeah. So I couldn't tell if you're saying 9-2 as in 9 as well or 9.2.
No, 9-2. No, 9.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your review.
I'm a miser. I expect a lot out of celebrations. We saw some phenomenal celebrations out of this team a couple years ago. So, the standard is the standard, as they say. And so for me, I think that this was a really fantastic celebration. I'm giving it an 8-7. Honestly, I can't get up to a 9. I think that you need to do something original to get up to that 9, and then you need to execute it really well. Right. I don't think that you can be in the realm of something like a 10 without something completely original, without something executed extraordinarily well and all that. But for a celebration that's been done before, I think that this was a really good one to choose, right? Because there's some celebrations that have been done before that are not good to choose. And it was executed spectacularly. But there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling on old celebrations. And this one basically just bumps up against it. I really like it. But to me, that's an 8-7.
To get an 8-7 from Arif is like to get a 50 from anybody else. So that's pretty dang good. You mentioned some of the great celebrations in the past. What's the one that always sticks out to you? Because I don't remember all of them, but I remember there was a lot of
the
good
first
ones.
bowling celebration. I thought.
Oh,
yeah, I was going to get there. Duck Duck Ray Duck is, especially because of how local, right? The way it got executed was. But Duck Duck Ray Duck is up there. Sack Dance or Sack Race is up there. I love that one. The first time that was done. The first bowling celebration I thought was great. We've seen a couple where the group celebrations involve like hitting a home run and going around all the bases. That's been really fun to watch. I think that there's a lot of really great celebrations that the repeat. Okay, so there's a difference between repeats and homages. The homage to the Joe Horn phone call.
Oh,
beautiful.
Oh, that's an all-timer.
Right.
That's an all-timer, man.
Yeah, that's a 9+ for me as well. So there are some really good ones. I'm not saying I don't give out 9+. I'm just saying we have to understand that there's always room to improve.
He's selective. Yeah,
I was going to say the Duck Duck
leave
Grey
room.
Duck, man, on prime time. Was that a Monday night or Sunday night football game in Soldier?
Monday. Yeah,
Monday night
was
on
great.
prime time was just that's the standard. That's the cream of the crop.
they also had a good
the penguin
freeze
sliding.
tag
The penguin sliding
in the
that Justin
Miracle
Fields
game.
did.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
9+ territory.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
that was good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen some good ones this year too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also kind of miserly. I think that the timing of it was interesting because they were behind in the fourth quarter and they still executed it.
That's a good point.
They were close. They were in the red zone, ready to tie the game, but they weren't exactly in the driver's seat by any means. And usually those celebrations are reserved for sort of like neutral situations or when you have a big lead. And they had the confidence to pull that off. I guess I don't know if that's a subtraction or an addition to the score, but had they not scored a touchdown on that drive and settled for 3, then I think it looks pretty stupid. So I'm going to give it an 8.4 for timing purposes. I think you got to pick your spot a little better. But I like the left-handed form by Harrison Smith. It looks so awkward.
Yeah, is he a lefty?
Really awkward.
Does he? You watched the golf video this summer with Patrick Peterson. Is he a lefty, Sam?
Yeah, he looks like a giant standing over the golf ball. I think he has like kid clubs. It was weird. All right, let's update our gambling from last week. And fellas, it's not great. I went 0-1. I pushed on Tom Brady's comeback, so that was big. Arif, you go 1-1. Braun 0-2, and Luke, you missed on the Vikings by half a point. You're 0-1 with Monday Night Football still to come. I believe Arif was leading in that.
I need the over.
Say again?
Which I need the over tonight. I 45.5, 47. I can't remember, but all day I was thinking, watching the afternoon game, I was like, oh, I think I have the over in this Seattle-Arizona game. This is great. All right, at least I'll go 1-1. Look up Sam's email. Nope, picked the wrong over. So that's great. That's fun. Luke, you lost by a half point too in one of your picks too, didn't you? So you feel my pain.
I lost by a half
Feel my
point.
pain.
Ooh.
Yep. I went for an over-under, I think, on Jags Raiders on the comeback,
Yeah.
and it was 47.5, and the total was 47.
Man.
Vegas is
that comeback
sick.
must have had you juiced too.
I love.
I forgot
after
until later, so I was spared the
I love-
disappointment.
after 7 weeks of one of us, mainly me, picking the Jags. The week nobody picks the Jags, they win. Of course, we all knew that was
For the Jags, we
Yeah.
should ignore them this week, for their sake.
Yes, correct.
I think one of us has backed the Packers too, like each of the last 3 weeks, and gotten burned because Green Bay keeps faltering. Can the Vikings clinch by Thanksgiving as the scenario lays out? They would need Bills, Cowboys victories. That's probably the toughest part. Packers lose to the Titans, lose to the Cowboys. Very possible. Bears would have to lose to the Lions and Falcons. I don't think it happens, but I think it would be amazing to clinch before December 1st. Odds of that scenario coming to fruition, Braun.
You're parlaying like 5 games, so that's going to be in the 4 to 5 digit territory. Especially games where the Vikings are more than a touchdown underdog at the Bills, and then the Cowboys is not going to be easy. And you're parlaying like 7 games because you need both the Bears and Packers to lose 2, right?
Some of those they're
The
going to be
Bears
favorites
close enough
though. In
to
like Bears might be
Interesting.
favorites.
They're tied with the Packers
against the Lions.
Oh wow, rip Packers.
Yeah,
It's
rough.
over.
That's
it's
raw.
over.
And then
for
you
the
got to
division.
win. It is over for the division. But you got to parlay like 7 games to do it by Thanksgiving. That's going to be like a plus 12,000 territory.
Man, if that happens, I might I might, because it would have to we would be post Thanksgiving to be able to execute it. I might willingly eat turkey for Christmas dinner, right? If the Vikings, in honor of Thanksgiving, right? If the Vikings clinch the division by Thanksgiving, I'm going to do something I stand against. It's apparently, according to Elon Musk, this is going to be my permanent Twitter handle that
You
I
gonna
hate
eat
turkey. I'm going to willingly eat turkey for Christmas, a holiday that people don't even eat turkey for, right? In homage to Thanksgiving and the Vikings clinching.
That's bold. I saw Kay
That's
Adams
bold,
called you out for
Jerry.
that.
That's bold.
Yeah. Yeah. She was asking if I hated the country. I thought I was pretty clear about that with the little turkey emoji. But,
Yeah, the turkey was
nothing
almost
wrong
our
with,
national bird.
Turkey the country.
What do you have against the
Yeah,
Ottomans?
Benjamin Franklin. I mean, it is a native bird. I get it.
The
Maybe that would've been
Philadelphia
better because people
Turkeys
wouldn't
are
eat it.
8-0.
What,
I think if
what
it's not
game,
Thanksgiving,
real quick, what game worries you guys the most? Forget about the Bills. Is it the Cowboys? Is it the Jets? Or is it the Bill Belichick on a short week on Thanksgiving? Which game worries you guys the most?
Cowboys. Dak
Like,
Prescott
no
finally
doubt,
looked
hands
good this
down?
year.
Home
He's
games,
only
right?
had like, Bills isn't.
Yeah,
Bills
3
isn't
home
like-
games
oh,
in
yeah,
a row,
I guess you
all
can
at
go
home.
Bills, but yeah, the Dak Prescott is actually looked good this last week, which was concerning for the perspective of like being able to beat the Cowboys. And if he is anything like the quarterback he was, a year ago, 2 years ago, and that defense continues to be a top 5 defense, like I don't see how you get past them.
Yeah, Micah Parsons
It's an
and that
incredible
defense, man, is
Mhm.
scary to watch. They're good.
big for the 2 seed. If the 1 is unattainable, that's big for the 2 because that would be a tiebreaker situation with Dallas. Before we get into party fouls, give me an amended win-loss for this team. 7-1 with 9 to go. Amended win-loss on the spot. Luke Inman.
12-5.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where are the
I'm in
losses
the same
coming?
spot.
Where are they losing? Who beats them 4 times?
Bills.
Okay.
Cowboys, as we just mentioned. I
Okay,
think
2 in a row.
one of these Patriots-Jets games, Belichick on a short week just scares me. I think they lose one of the Patriots or Jets games. And, gosh, I don't know, one of the Giants, Packers, or Bears. Even though the Bears or Packers don't look good, we all know what happens when we go to Soldier or Lambeau Field. Maybe the Packers have turned it on by then. Giants aren't a gimme anymore, even though they don't seem super sustainable either right now. But I think Cowboys, Bills, that's your 2 for sure. One of the Patriots, Jets, that's 3. And I basically just named every game at this point now. One of the Packers, Bears on the road is going to be a tough one.
No, I actually completely agree with Luke and his shotgun spread of games to pick to lose. Like,
I see
I
these
think
9 games,
they lose.
one of those.
Yeah. One of those, yeah. No, I think they lose the next 2. I think they lose one of the 2 following that, and then one of the 5 following that. So 3 of the next 4, one of the 5 following. Just because it's like, hey, Detroit, Indianapolis, Green Bay, and Chicago are not particularly fantastic teams, but good teams will lose to a bad team every so often, and the odds are still there, even if they only have a 20% chance of losing any one of those games. Plus, the Giants are either a good team or a bad team, or neither. I don't know. And so the odds of losing that game are pretty reasonable as well. So I think that there is a chance to lose one of those 5 games. I think there's a really good likelihood you lose the next 2. And then between the Patriots and the Jets, one of them might be able to figure something out, especially, like you said, Belichick on a short week.
Right. And this is what worries me. We all assume that there's a good possibility they do lose these next 2 games. Now you've lost 2 in a row and you're going into that short week against Belichick. There's just going to be so much pressure. You've lost the magic, the luster.
Yeah, now
you
we
can't
get to
figure
test
it
team
out what's
culture.
going on. That worries me, just being in that state now for the first time all year, facing that extreme adversity, facing Bill Belichick. Again, on the short week, which more times than not, Belichick gives you the advantage there.
Braun?
Yeah, I'm not going to stray too far from this. Let's say, all right, they're going to lose to the Bills. Let's say that happens. Let's say they lose to the Cowboys too, a couple of good teams. You're feeling pretty bad going into that short week, but sometimes that short week can be exactly what you need when you're down in the dumps. It just forces you to kind of get over it. Kind of like what happened after losing to Philly on Monday night. They had a little bit of a short week. They had to get over it. They haven't lost since. So let's say they'll go beat the Patriots on that, and then Jets are a tougher team than you think. They'll lose a really dumb game and we'll be really frustrated. And it'll be like one of those where it felt like they super could have won. They outgained the Jets by 200 yards, but they lose. Then they got to go to Detroit, and they're going to lose a stupid game to Detroit. and then they don't lose again for the rest of the season. They go in 12-5. 4-game winning streak, and they go in hot.
Yeah, I mean, losing a stupid game
Colts,
specifically
Giants.
to Detroit seems entirely.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we all
Colts.
know, and Luke calls it out, right? Like, we all know they always lose one game on the schedule every year that, like, we're not supposed to win. It felt like yesterday was supposed to be that loss. So where is this loss going to happen? Detroit certainly could be the case.
Detroit.
Chicago, Packers, any of those. Colts, who knows?
But then you have a Colts team that has given up. They just named Jeff Saturday interim head coach. They are not taking the season seriously anymore.
Jeff Saturday?
Then a Giants team.
I didn't know
you
that.
didn't see
Yeah,
that?
that just broke.
Yeah. Interim coach Jeff Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's like a
I
very
checked
Jim
for the
Irsay
Darn
decision.
Schefter so hard.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Ian Rappapoop. Yeah.
Remember when we were clowning on the Texans for considering like Josh McCown as their head coach? Well, guess what? The Colts just did that.
Yeah. But like the last 4 games, the Giants are the only team that's taking the season seriously by that point. Packers will have given up. Rodgers will be on IR with a thumb injury. He ain't playing 4 more games. He's done. And the Bears gave up before the season started. He got a thumb injury. He's gonna put himself on IR, and because he doesn't want to play anymore with these scrubs, he's done. He hates them outwardly.
Yeah.
He is meaner to his teammates in the media than Mike Zimmer
Something
was
about
to
your
Kirk Cousins.
face. If you don't change it, I'm gonna change it for you.
Okay, so
right?
just a quick aside. I know we're running short on time, but that is just so funny to me because like Rodgers says these things, right? He's like, yeah, a bunch of people are making mistakes, and we have to call them out. So many people are on the field making mistakes. We just want to call out to players who are starting and to the head coach for not benching them, right? And a lot of people are defending Rodgers by saying he's right, and it's like the question is not whether or not he's right or wrong. They're losing. Obviously, people are making mistakes. The question is whether or not he should go on the Pat McAfee show and say it, right? Like, that's insane to me. Say it to your teammates or to your, like, what are you doing, man?
How much more fun would the last couple years
That's
have
what
been
he's expressing.
if Mike Zimmer had this energy?
Oh
my
my
gosh.
gosh. Be incredible. He'd
I mean, I
probably
think we
come on
would've learned
Locked
a
On
lot more about
Sports
Cameron
Minnesota.
Dantzler.
With a few choice words mixed in.
Okay, just to
that's
wrap
funny.
this up, though, all I'm saying, you lose Buffalo, you lose Dallas, all of a sudden you lose to New England, and now you're
So
now
they're
you're
gonna
facing
be
these
struggling
Jets. It's
here.
not the same Jets. You're looking at 4 in a row. I'm just saying.
All of
Tough
you
stretch.
think they're going to be in crisis mode here. Like, we're going to be like, there's no
Sky
one's
is
giving
falling.
thanks on Thanksgiving the way you guys have laid this out. Now, I was 12-5 from the beginning, so I don't need to change anything. I just want to make that clear that I was always 12-5.
Okay.
But
Do you have that on record?
Yeah, I remember I yelled at a Twitter person about it. But all of you are assuming they lose the obvious games. Why can't the Vikings actually like steal a game from somebody? Why do they have to lose a dumb game? I don't think they have to. So while I'm not going to come off
I
of
think
12
they've
and
stolen
5,
enough.
have they though? They haven't beaten any. You're right. The house money is a large stack, but they haven't really won a game they aren't supposed to win per se. Anyway, I'm not changing my 12 and 5 because I want to remain
The reason they're not
consistent.
stealing a game they're not supposed to win is because they're forced to steal games they were supposed to win. Games that were taken away and they're stealing
Well, is
them
it
back,
stealing then?
right?
Like if
Taylor Heineke stole the win from you and you scrambled to steal
if
it back.
somebody
That's the
runs
issue.
up to you on the street and steals your purse, and then you run and take it back from them, that is still rightfully your purse. It was your purse the whole time.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is legally not theft for you to recover your own purse, but you have engaged in the act of property acquisition by force.
Unless you signed a treaty with
the
United States around like 1800.
Next time on the Monroe Doctrine podcast.
Time for party fouls with that.
Andrew Jackson sees
Party
no
fouls.
problem.
Can't get into it
with what
fast
the
enough.
Vikings are doing.
It's time to tell you who spilled their proverbial drink on the sofa. Get ready for this week's party foul.
I would like to think that we hired an actor to film that scene with the glitter and the party as well. I just assume that people do go to great lengths to make these little things work for our show. So my party foul is very curmudgeonly this week. I like Kirko chains. I like having fun. I like the celebratory plane trip. They can do that. The catchphrase still bothers me, though. Like, why does Kirk need the catchphrase for training camp, big plays? Why does he need, like, save it for playoff wins? It's lost all meaning. It was cool in the Saints playoff win.
He's going to change it to you Vike that for the playoffs.
Don't use it. You have to, now that he's used it for a wild card win, you can't use it again until you exceed that.
Luke Braun's face.
It kind of feels like it's disgusting. Apologize.
He trademarked it. It's already trademarked.
He kind of feels like he wants to escape it. When he was talking about it on the post-game presser,
Yeah.
I got a sense that he was like, this is going to follow me around for the rest of my life.
They kind of forced him to say it. I will say that. Like, if you watch the breakdown video, they prodded him
Like,
and I don't know if he was super into, but
it's like that
still,
Simpsons
just
meme. Say the phrase, Bart.
Say, hey, fellas, fellas.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it again until
I
we
didn't do it.
win a bleeping Super Bowl. That's how you handle that.
There it is.
Yeah, we just want to
Give
come
me
out
some
here and have a
shade.
good week of
I like-
practice. And remember, that's www.youvikethat.com. Let's ride.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm
flapping.
stealing
He's
this party foul
flapping.
before anyone else can. My party foul is Jim Irsay naming Jeff Saturday the interim coach.
No, that's all I had. I had nothing, then I had
All right, I'm
something
jumping in
to
before
spin
Luke and
middle.
getting the back
No,
judge.
I have nothing. No!
One of us has to say the back judge.
No.
You can't do that. I'm sorry. That is
All
one
the
of the
good ones
worst
are
ref
gone.
things I've ever seen. Like,
Dude,
it's
what-
one
what-
thing to
Yeah. Go
it's
ahead.
one thing to like miss a call, right? Things are going fast. You like it's split second stuff. I get it. Like even the most egregious thing, you didn't have the right angle. Like it's hard. I get it. Get out of the way, my dude.
Mhm.
Go any other direction. He just like panicked and ran directly at a player. What on earth are you doing? As a ref, like priority number one is to not influence physically the game. Like that is the training. Like keep
Yeah.
the game flowing and don't get in the
Stand
game's
still.
way. Get
Let
away.
the athlete get
Stand
around you.
still.
The Vikings radio analyst freaking out at the ref was hilarious, by the way, if you haven't heard that clip. It's great.
Oh, I haven't. Okay.
Awful.
I got to check that out.
Mhm.
I'm going to go to the Packers-Lions game. You would assume that I would party foul something about the Packers or Aaron Rodgers. Lions, you already traded away TJ Hawkinson. You had one win. You're selling the farm. You got CJ Stroud coming out here next year. You got the number 1 overall pick. Party foul. Why would you win this game? What are you
Party foul
doing?
is
Don't
to
you know how to
win.
tank? You can't even tank right. Lions, CJ Stroud. This is the difference between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, okay? Trust me.
Are
want
you
CJ Stroud.
saying
Okay,
Aiden
we'll have it in
Hutchinson
him.
should not have picked off that pass? Because I will absolutely not listen to any argument that requires that.
Fair
If
enough.
you're a
Well,
defensive
that was
lineman, you can
amazing.
get away with dropping a pick. No
That
one's
was-
going to hate
that
you
was
for
great.
it.
To be fair, you guys stole my 2 other arguments, so I had to win. that.
Okay,
Confirms-
bonus
Lions,
party
figure
foul,
it out.
though. Did anyone see, this was, so red zone, I had second screen on red zone toward the end of the Vikings game. Crazy few minutes. Did anyone see the Falcons player pick up a fumble
Yes.
in a tie
Yes.
game inside of a minute left and then drop it for absolutely no reason?
Ghosted.
And they lost.
Absolute ghosted. Defensive
no.
340-pound D tackle.
Can you
Just
can you
got the
party
game
foul
winner.
a team for being who they are? That's the most Falcon stuff I've ever heard.
Totally.
I mean,
Oh my
Falcons
gosh.
Chargers had to end like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The Chargers don't play a normal game. The Falcons are an enigma. Yeah.
They're
And
amazing.
also-
And Olamide Zacchaeus.
I also really
saying.
hope they win that division. I would so much rather have like a plucky Falcons team in the playoffs than the 1 foot out the door Bucks. Just
I think everybody
please
wants
don't.
that,
Yeah,
and I think
that's way
everybody
better.
also
Oh my
knows it
gosh.
won't happen. It's just not going to happen. You just know the Bucks
It's
are
ju-
right in
it-
there.
the funniest possible outcome, right? Like the
Yeah.
second funniest is a PJ Walker-led Panthers, which sounds like it's not going to happen now that Sam Darnold's been activated. But a PJ Walker-led Panthers doing it is the second funniest. But like the Falcons, like without a quarterback and with a wide receiver at running back, yeah, absolutely, that's hilarious. Let's go.
So good. That was a fun show. Luke Inman, your reemergence after the tech issues, it brought the fun to a different level. I just want to compliment you for your aura. Added
do
to
what
the
I can,
mix
Sam.
today.
That's Venmo at Luke-Inman. Wait, I'm just gonna edit that out. Cut that out. Leave it in.
But seriously, we take
Seriously,
tips.
leave it in. But seriously, I need money.
Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network, Luke Inman, Superior Sports Talk, Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. I'm Sam Ekstrom of the Ron Johnson Show in Locked On Sports Minnesota. Check us out on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available. Ron Johnson joins us on Thursday's show. Plenty of Buffalo Bills preview. Big matchup on Sunday. That's coming up on the next episode of the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota.